Today we will talk about leadership. Get it? So we've already discussed leadership as being one of the important managers' roles as discussed by Mintzberg's theory on managers. And in this video, we will look at in a little more detail as to what leadership is about, at what levels of an organization leaders are needed, and how they make sure that the business is able to achieve their overall long-term objectives. Now, simply defined, leadership simply means the art of motivating a group of people. And of course, we're talking about a businesses, we're talking about your team. So, art of motivating a group of people towards achieving a common goal. And you will remember this from our discussion on objectives, how each individual employee is given their individual targets based on the overall company objectives. So, leaders play an important role in making sure that whatever the company has decided for itself and the employees is being followed in the correct manner by the employees. So, what does it take to be a good leader? Now, before we get into that, I want to say that not all bosses make good leaders. Okay, now what does it take to be a good leader? There's a bunch of qualities. Of course, there are some that I'll be able to mention here, but it goes beyond all of these. But just broadly speaking, the first thing that employees are looking for from their managers is motivation. Yeah, that's the role of a leader. They need someone who can motivate them, G them up towards the common goal that the company will achieve. And they understand that if the company achieves their targets, the employees also get the right rewards for it. Additionally, they should be someone who have vision, okay, not just someone who is reactive in approach but proactive and sees problems before occurring and try to find the right solution for it. Leader is also someone that provides stimulating work for their employees. So the more stimulating or the more challenging the work is going to be, the more motivated the employees are going to feel. I'm the same way, and I'm sure you are also. They also need to be clear communicators. Okay, now you don't want any ambiguity, any confusion in directions coming from your leader. So the more clear they are, the clearer the communication, especially two-way communication. As long as that's established, this will always be a good relationship. Also, this is someone who will be recognizing the good job being done by the employees. So it's not just about giving the work down, it's also about praising and appreciating the effort that the employees are putting in. And also, a leader will also need to be inspirational. Someone with charisma, someone who can get things done. And when a young employee joins and sees the fearless leader taking up with everyone internally or externally for the company, that will feel inspirational. I'm sure you've played on team sports, and when you see the captain performing, and I'm sure we're all feeling that we can do the same and we want to follow this guy into any battle. So that sort of inspiration is what a leader is supposed to exude. Also, that will only come from being a good example. Okay, following all the rules, going beyond the requirement of the job and the expectations of the employees, and doing more for them will always set a good example for everyone to follow. And if you can set a good example at the ahead of the group, I'm sure it will have a good positive impact, further down on the team. And that's what you should do as a leader. Focus on the team. It's not a one-man game. Everyone, each small part individually, when put together, will be a lot more. The sum of it would be a lot more than the individual part. So you want to make sure that whatever decisions you're taking as a leader, you're taking with everyone on the team in your mind. So collectively, these will all make you a good leader. And there are certain types. Now, in the end, of course, your personality type will decide what kind of leader you become, and that's a big factor. I'm not saying it's the only one, but it's a big factor. But eventually, the style you take up can be divided into three main categories, and that's what we're going to discuss next, the three types of leadership styles that you can find in a business situation. So the first of these leadership styles is called the autocratic leadership. Okay? And this is literally a one-man show. This is where the one person who sets the expectations, defines what is expected from any particular job, and also tells the employees how to go about it. Okay, they will literally tell people what to do. They expect people to do as they're told. Basically, they will want to make all the decisions, but of course that will also mean that all the responsibilities of those decisions will also rest by that one leader. But of course, there are some advantages of autocratic leadership, and I want to make this clear right now before I get any further, that just because it sounds a little more like a dictatorship does not make autocratic leadership a bad style of leadership. Because what it does for a company is that it clearly sets the hierarchy in the mind of the employees. It clearly states who is the guy who is making the decisions, the leader, and everyone who has to follow must follow his lead. So, at least in that sense, the structure is very clearly understood by everyone. And when one person is making all the decisions, it creates consistent rules for everyone. You're not making favors for everyone. You don't have different rules for different departments. Everyone's following one basic criteria, and that helps in having uniformity in the business, making sure no one is being discriminated against. And when there's one person taking decision, the time taken will be much less as compared to when you have everyone having a say in the decision making. So there's obviously good sides to autocratic leadership, but there are also some cons, some disadvantages of adopting an autocratic style leadership. And first and foremost, and obvious to see from this, is that since there is no employee involvement, there's just one person at the head of the department, as you can see here, shouting out his instructions to everyone. This would lead to demotivation for the employees. If I was your autocratic leader and I would never listen to you, or your input would be taken into consideration in my decisions, there's only so much time before you decide to move on to a different thing. So, again, it will be quite limiting for the employees when you're working under autocratic leadership, because it starves the department of creativity and innovation. You're still following that one path that the leader has decided. And eventually, what this will lead to is your employees leaving, which is basically higher labor turnover, which is an indicator which we'll discuss in HR very soon in the next chapter, that labor turnover calculates how many people leave an organization in a particular period. So if you're demotivated, if you see no creativity or innovation, no part in decision making, of course, as an employee, you would leave an organization. So this is all about control for the one man, and also it comes with its benefits, right? One person makes it single policy for everyone. So good and bad. Okay. We will now move on to the next style of leadership, which is quite a contrast from autocratic leadership style, which is called the democratic style of leadership. So the democratic style of leadership, as the name suggests, is based on the concept of democracy. And we all know democracy is one of the more inclusive styles of leadership. And this is where employees are all encouraged to take part in decision making, to have their say on matters, to give their feedback, and before any decisions making, for everyone to collaborate and discuss ideas and try to convince each other. And once everyone is settled and convinced on an idea, only then would the company or the group would move forward. That's what we call a democratic style of leadership, where everyone's encouraged to be a part of it. And of course, you would see that there are obvious benefits from it. First and foremost is that the employees feel a lot more motivated. When you will be asked about your feedback before the whole department or the whole group decides to go forward, I'm sure it will also increase a little bit of blood in your body. So simply saying, make you more confident. So again, motivation is one of the greatest advantages of having a democratic style of leadership. What it also allows the employees to do is show their creativity, be innovative. Ideas are encouraged, shared, improved together through communal problem solving. And once that happens, creativity and innovation flourishes. And you're constantly discussing ideas with one another, bouncing them off, seeing if you can find better solution And that creates a strong bond between the teams. You can rely on one another for solutions, for new ideas, or just a simple, nice chat at the end of the day. So it's all nice and rosy when we look at the democratic style of leadership. However, we've only looked at the good side. There are also some limitations when it comes to democratic style leadership. And first and foremost, when you ask everyone to be a part of a decision, you know it's going to take some time to reach a conclusion. Even if, let's say, we go through the first 90% of the people who have to make a decision quickly, maybe the last 10 take longer and they start convincing the other ones, hey, we should go a different way. So there can be a lot of back and forth, which will be very time consuming in a democratic style of leadership. Also, when you have to have everyone become part of the decision, you also need to give them information which will help them to make that decision. And once you share important information for everyone, you know that there's going to be a risk of information leak. You can't trust, maybe you can't trust all of your employees with all the information. Some of it is sensitive, but in order to make a decision, they must be shared. And if it is and gets leaked, then it's the company that suffers in the result as a result. And also for democratic, and think about it, right? If you want to make everyone a part of the decision making process, you want to make sure they're all skilled and talented and trained enough to make those decisions. So if the decision starts to be taken by unskilled workers, you know the final decision is not going to be the best one for the company. So, like I said about autocratic, even democratic has its good and its bad. Now, there's one more. It's called laissez-faire, and we move to that. Laissez-faire style leadership is what we call a hands-off approach. Okay, this is where the manager just literally just simply becomes the supervisor to everyone. All the decision making is dedicated to all the employees in their positions. So whatever decision employee has to take, they don't have to consult with the manager or the leader in this situation. They are given full autonomy, full freedom to make the decisions they feel are the best in that given situation. And yeah, it's a very broad criteria, but it still allows a lot of creative freedom to come through from the employees. And think about it, right? When you hire an employee, you make sure that you go through the proper process to get the right person in place. Now, when you've gone through all that trouble to get the right person in place, why not maximize the output from that person by giving them the authority to make the best use of their skills? So that's what laissez-faire style is, and the manager simply is there to guide the people to make sure that they're all following the right company objective, but the decision making lays in the hands of the workers. Now, of course, what this means is that all the delegation, all the work being passed down to the supervisor, from the supervisor to the subordinates or the employees, would mean it will create a positive environment amongst the team. Of course, this will also show that the individual creativity of employees is also valued by the company, and they're, in fact, the company is encouraging them to show what they can do with their own abilities. And all the employees, once they're given the opportunity to make their decisions, they can make use of the experience that they've earned. And all the experience they have will only when added together, will only benefit the company. And now, of course, when you give the decision to each individual worker in their hands, that may create a bit of friction, a little crash of styles where one might agree with one person's style, the other may not. So there is bound to be a little bit of friction because not everybody works the same way or thinks the same way. And when you give decision to everyone collectively, it might lead to a bit more time being consumed when everybody is just doing their own thing and not combining towards a common goal. And when, again, it will be understandable that if you give everyone a choice to do whatever they feel is the right thing to do, then you're not really sure what everybody is doing. The responsibilities are unclear. Who is the leader? Who is the follower? Who's supposed to make a decision at this point? Who's supposed to make a decision at that point? So, in that sense, it can become a little bit ambiguous as to what everyone is doing and what the leader is doing in this situation. If he's not making decisions, then what is the leader doing? So Yeah, good and bad, but this is often a good application of such a leadership style would be where the managers are probably too busy to intervene, and they want to make sure that all the work is being done on time. And yeah, market research, yes, market research or marketing agencies where you want something different, something creative, something new every time. Then you don't want one person to be dictating decisions every time. You want everyone to make their own decisions. So laissez-faire style leadership would be something that's commonly seen in research institutes and marketing agencies. So now, having looked at all three styles of leadership, I know you must be thinking, yeah, we've seen the good and the bad of all three, then what really is the best style of leadership? And the answer is that there isn't one. There isn't one particular style that fits all situations at all times in all businesses. And in the end, it's a combination of different factors that will help a business decide which style of leadership is best suited. Also, understand that there can be different styles of leadership within the same business because different situations and different departments and different sets of people will dictate that a different leadership style is needed at a different part or a different department of a company, while a different one's needed at a different department. So, what helps us to decide what style of leadership best suits us? First of all, it depends upon the experience and the competence of the employees. What are their qualities? Are they even able to take up the responsibilities that the company is asking them to do? Number two, the amount of time available. Number three, importance of issue under discussion. And number four, the attitudes of the manager. Okay. Now, what does this mean? Now, let's say that, let's look at one of these one by one, all of these one by one, sorry. So, the first one being experience and competence of employees. Now, when you know that your workers are highly experienced, trained, and all of that, you know you can trust them with their decision making. So, that's where perhaps a democratic style would be more suited. If compare that to low levels of understanding and competent experience, that's where you may have to take the decision. So autocratic could be more suited. If there's a lot of time available, yes, you can give the decisions in everyone's hands, and that becomes a democratic style leadership. But there's not enough time, autocratic would be more suited to that. Importance of issue, it's a very, very important issue. You can't trust everyone with it, then you would probably want to go the autocratic way. If it's not so important, maybe someone who has a lower level of skill could also do it, then maybe democratic. Okay, so different things will have a different say on what the final leadership style would be. And the fourth of these is the attitude of the manager. And I will take the help of another theory and the final theory in this chapter to explain to you what attitudes of manager mean when it comes to choosing the best style of leadership. Now, the attitude of the manager or the perception, how they see their employees, will have a huge say in determining the final leadership style of that particular group. And on that subject, Mr. McGregor, his full name is Douglas McGregor, had a say. And he said that, look, at the end of the day, managers will see their employees in just two ways. And he termed that theory X and theory Y. And he said all managers will divide their workers into these two broad categories. Some of them will be termed the X employees, and some of them would be termed the Y employees. Now, what does it mean to be an X employee? Doesn't mean you were fired, of course, but what it means is when you fall in the category of theory X, you are thought to be the type of employee who will be expected to be lazy. The manager sees you and says, okay, this guy is just going to be lazy. I'm going to have to get after him. You will be someone who is driven by money. The sole reason for 30X worker would be to just see that they're getting the money that they want. Also, there'll be someone who requires strict supervision from the manager. So can't be left alone. They're not self-starters. They're not initiators, but rather they're always driven by money and more supervision. And the way to fix this is for the manager to emphasize on the productivity. Okay, look, I don't care what you're doing, how you're doing it, just meet your targets, and that's what's expected of you. That sort of employee would be considered the employee of theory X as perceived by the manager. Theory Y employees are the exact opposite. A manager's dream. They're the kind of people who are satisfied from getting more responsibility. They're always looking for more challenging tasks, newer opportunities, new targets, job enrichment. They are self starters. They don't need to be told, they don't need to be supervised. They will go and get things done on their own. And the way for the company to make the best use of them is to make sure that they're focusing on developing their people, training them, providing them tools that will see them grow. And once they grow, the company grows as a result. So just remember that this isn't a theory on how to motivate workers or anything. This is just about how a manager or a leader would see his workers. And the argument is that not all workers are strictly X or strictly Y. All workers will be a combination of the two or will fall somewhere between the two. In some situations, they might feel themselves to be lazy. In some situations, very, very responsible and self-starting and all those things. So all employees will be a combination of two. Some may be a little more on the X, some may be a little more on the Y. But it's the time needed to take the decision, the seriousness of the issue, and the competence of the employees along with the attitude of the manager, which will help you determine what the best style of leadership is for the business.